What's up, guys? It's Brian. I'm going to be commentating over my footage from the Tennessee National. I think this is something I want to do for all my races this year. I think it's a little better than being vlog guy in the moment because I have a little bit more perspective after the race. I can kind of talk you through what I'm thinking during the stages and kind of how the day progresses. But as you can see, we got some really gnarly conditions. There's a ton of snow the day before the race. The trail crew was actually out this morning, snow blowing the trails and getting them so we could ride. But yeah, it's a bit of a shit show. People falling all over the place. Homie's here making death noises, but he's all good. We've all been there. These conditions were wild, and I really like riding in the mud. Your bike's moving around all over the place, and you really got to let it flow and find traction in different ways. But just because I like it, I don't think it necessarily means I'm good at it. Just being from the West Coast, we don't get that many opportunities to ride in legitimate mud. And I don't think any amount of mud riding would have prepared, anyone for this race, because this was by far the worst conditions I've ever raced a bike in. Right now, the trails are actually running pretty good, but it's early in the morning, and you'll see later in the video as the conditions warm up and the trail thaws out and the snow melts, things just get exponentially worse. So, yeah, it was a challenge to just keep the bike rolling because the mud was so thick. On the West Coast, when trails get wet, it never really gets that thick. This dirt has way more clay in it. Like our trails get slippery, but never this thick mud, which is yeah, its own challenge to ride. You can see here, just struggling a little bit, but I had dual shorties on, which was definitely the call. Really thankful to be supported by Maxxis this year, and yeah, the shorty is exactly what you wanted on a day like this to get the mud out. But it's not a full spike because there's still a ton of rocks and roots. So no matter what tire you're on, it was going to be gnarly, is really what it came down to. So this is stage one. Unfortunately for my race run, my GoPro just didn't record and was unresponsive. So I'll just talk you through what happened in my race. These corners up here were way wetter for my race run, but they still have a ton of support. So it gave me confidence to push, and I think I rode this top section really well, but I missed a couple lines later on in the stage, and I didn't really adjust for the technical sections. I was just pushing too hard and being a little too ambitious with my line choice for what the conditions allowed in the more technical sections. So here's where I crashed the first time. I tried to stay really high on that camber. It was a bummer that in practice I wasn't able to practice that line because I just misjudged where the support would be on that high line and completely washed out. And then up here, I made a second crash and again a poor line choice. So I went to that outside and then just fell out of the rut and slid down the hill. It was, yeah, a real bummer to throw away my race on the first stage of the first race of the season. I think technically there were some things I did wrong, but also getting my mindset and pacing correct for racing is something I'm still trying to figure out. But especially on the first race of the season, it's really hard to judge. At this race last year, I definitely undershot and rode way too conservative. But this time, I think I really didn't consider the conditions, and I was really excited and definitely nervous, and I overshot riding way too aggressive. And I think, if anything, especially on the first race of the season, it's better to undershoot than overshoot. Get a baseline, and you can build from there. It was, yeah, really tough to have two crashes, pretty much a terrible stage, and then having to reset for stage two. And this is stage two, and my mindset here was just to get down the hill with a clean run. So I could have something to build off of, but as you can see, conditions have gotten way worse. The mud's way stickier. There's kind of this flat section, and it was a huge challenge just to even keep the bike rolling because I think a lot of people actually ended up walking or sorry, running. But yeah, it was insane how much weight the bikes put on, especially during this flatter stuff. As soon as the bike slows down, the tires aren't clearing mud as efficiently, and you just get bogged down. So it was a real challenge to pedal a bike with muddy pants that weighs I mean, probably 10 or 15 more pounds than it should. The back tire sliding, you're still trying to catch ruts. Uh, at this point, the heart rate's pretty high, so just keeping the bike moving was a big challenge. And I mean, thankful to have the shorties on doing their job, clearing mud. Because yeah, some people said their bikes just completely locked up. We're through the worst of it here, and the rest of this stage gets a little more technical. So for the rest of the stage, I wasn't super happy with how I rode. Was starting to get a little bit of arm pump and was just riding tight mentally too. These corners, it's a lot of kind of left, right, 180 uh, corners that lead into traverses. So it's just really important to flow into them, get off the brakes, out of them, and then just be really smooth. And in these conditions, hit your ruts really good. And I felt like I was just coming in and out of ruts, and just not riding super committed. But again, I just wanted to get down this stage without too much drama. And the arm pump thing is something I've made a lot of progress on in the following weeks. I'll be doing a video on some testing I did and some adjustments I made with the bike to get that in a better place. I am riding flat pedals here. I think that was definitely the call for this race. I'm still undecided as to whether I'm going to race on them for the season. Um, the Dreadnought works really well with flat pedals. It just has a rearward axle path and almost no pedal kick. So I just get hardly any feedback through my feet and it feels really good. But I still got to test it out and decide what's actually going to be faster for me to race on. Even with flat pedals, I was definitely taking my feet off more than I would have liked. And yeah, at the bottom of the stage, I was just struggling to commit to these traverses and carry speed off those off camber sections where you really could let off the brakes, but it was a little dicey. And this is the bike after stage two. I ended up getting 15th. And as you can see, yeah, I'm not kidding when I say the bike probably weighs like 15 pounds more than it should. So power washed it off, got a little lighter, and went up to stage three. So this is the last run of the day. I think conditions actually got a little better where they started melting out so much that there was more water on the track, and that just made things clear a little bit better, and the mud wasn't as thick. One thing I wanted to talk about is just the technique involved with riding in these conditions, especially in deep ruts. Like up here, this is where I crashed in practice, and it's a super deep rut, kind of like 3 or 4 inches on both sides. And in practice, I was kind of apprehensive and I just grabbed the brakes. And what happens when you hit the brakes in a rut like that is you're just asking for the tire to grab onto one side or the other and climb up and out of the rut. Um, if you're off the brakes and you commit and you look ahead, even if you kind of touch the sides of it, it will usually just kind of point you in the direction you need to go. And it's only when you're braking does the bike get hung up enough where it actually will want to claw out of the rut. So it's really a commitment thing. And in these conditions, it's really hard to let off the brakes and it feels like you're going faster than you want to. But in those situations, it's just really important to fight your instincts and you're much better off just committing to whatever speed that you're going at than really fighting it and just upsetting the bike with really heavy braking when yeah, it's probably just gonna make you wash out, dab a foot, and yeah, you just gotta look ahead, accept that you're going fast, and commit to whatever support is there. Because yeah, if you're braking in the rut in the corner, it's too late, and you're gonna crash more times doing that than just trusting where you're at and and going for it. And yeah, it's just a really hard instinct to fight, especially like in conditions like these, which are extremely gnarly. And this section is really cool. Super steep, 180 switchback corners where you're kind of just falling into ruts. Really technical to ride, and especially through here, it was just like get through it. I foot planted there, um, and yeah, rode it fairly decent. And this is a wild off camber section too. Again, just trying to commit to ruts that have support. I was in a much better headspace for this stage. I think I found a pace where I was pushing, but still not getting sketchy, and I was just riding a lot looser. I ended up getting 10th on this. which is on the outer edge of where I want to be. I think with the field, I really want to be in that 5 to 10 range, and I think that's where my skills should put me. But being the first race of the season and just in these conditions was challenged a lot. That's why we go racing. It's really fun to put yourself in gnarly situations, and that's when you learn the most. And that's what's cool about doing early seasons racing too. Is just I have time to address the weaknesses and get better. So that's really exciting. We've got a big season ahead of us and plenty more opportunities to be where we want to be. But that's all she wrote for this video. Let me know if you like this commentary thing. Like I said, I'm going to try and do that for a lot of my races this year, and hopefully I can provide you some insight to help you guys out with your riding or racing too. But I'll catch you guys next time.